You gonna start off?
No.
Why not?
What do I say?
I don't know.
Hi. I don't know. What do I say? I don't know.
I think before this segment ends, I would like for you to try one.
Try one what?
Do an intro, but then I'll walk you through the stuff. So it's actually not that hard.
Oh, give me a stomach ache.
All right, well, welcome back. We have jump start, kickstart, jump kick. I was thinking about like ninjas. Okay, jump started this episode. Basically, again, what we're talking about is we are a husband and wife team running Fire and Brilliance, a jewelry company. Okay, if you guys are new to the channel, then you may not know what Fire and Brilliance is, but Fire and Brilliance is a jewelry company, especially catered to lab-created gemstones and lab-created type of jewelry. That being said, this is a husband and wife team. We actually operate as a husband and wife team with obviously people in our team to make all of this work. And a lot of times in the past we received a bunch of questions like, how do you guys do it? From our friends and family as well as the fans and followers. What do you guys do? How do you run a business to make sure the family's happy, make sure the business works, make sure everything's efficient, make sure everything's at high quality? Like, how do you do it? There's only so much time in a day. So this is pretty much what we're trying to do to share how we do it. We don't, obviously everyone does it differently, but all we can do is talk about our own experiences, how we operate, and how we do things. And today's episode is basically talking about kids, right? Kids.
Sure. Okay.
How do we run a business and run a family? Because that's essentially what it is. The way I personally look at life is all in one, all in the same. You could call it a relationship, you could call it a business, you could call it life. Whatever you want to call it, all it is a name. At the end of the day, you have to run your business, you have to run your family, you have to run everything that you want based on the standards that you see yourself having in life. And that's the way I view things. So one of the main questions right now is, well, you have a family, you have a bunch of kids, how do you find balance, right? How do you find a way to ensure that your kids are going to grow up with the quality of life, with the attention that they need from us, but at the same time for us to ensure that we run a quality business as well, because everyone needs our attention, right? There's only so much time in a day. There's
You're so popular.
60 seconds. No, you are popular. So there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
So there's only so much time, right? So 52 weeks a year.
Well, like everything else, it requires a lot of effort and a lot of work. You put the effort and you put the work in, like everything else, and then I think that's how you manage it. That's how you better it, if anything at all. And when you don't have that as something you lose track of, it can only be improved.
That's right.
Yeah.
So did you want to ask the first question, Brian?
Sure. So
Ask a good one.
I guess maybe just off the top of your head, in this time that you guys have, been running this business and having 2 kids, which you had along the way, maybe just think of one of the hardest things you feel like you had to struggle with, like whether it be finding time to spend time with them. Like, what do you feel like starting out when it was still a new experience, juggling both the business and the kids, was the hardest thing that you had to face?
You want me to start?
Sure.
That's pretty easy. The hardest struggle that I had to face in the beginning was to ensure that I spent enough time with my kids and my family, my wife, as well as the quality time with at the time, my son. And now that we have 2, I continue to still struggle to find that quality time, because when you run a business, it's definitely not an easy feat. So you have to make sure that things are running properly: sales, marketing, finance, operations, shipping, handling, vendor management, and all of that, and make sure that everyone's happy, right? So raising your kids and raising a business is almost one and the same, because your business is basically a kid that you created from scratch, similar to a baby, to your own kid, right?
And the business came first, before the babies.
The business came first before the baby, right? But then when the baby came, obviously that's your baby. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Things
really at the end of the
changed.
day. Obviously, your family is the most important thing, right? Your family is the most important thing. And here's the way I see things, right? So some people may agree with me, and some people may not. But I see this is how I prioritize my life. I see family as first, right, and then myself as second, and then business is third. But the funny part is that you have to actually change up the order to make it work. In order for it to work, you have to take care of yourself first so that you can run a business to have the financial means to take care of your family. So in order to actually ensure families first, you have to take care of yourself first.
Agree.
Right? So that's the reason why I always spend enough time on my own and then the business and then to make sure that the family's taken care of. Because if I don't do that, then that ultimately what I care about the most will not be cared for. So that being said, like, you know, my kids, I found the struggle in the beginning with Linda and I when we first ran the business, and based on the few episodes I'm not sure if you guys saw the F&B story. You haven't checked it out, you know, definitely check it out. It kind of explains how we started this whole thing. So when we first started Fire and Brilliance, it was more of a one-man team before it became a two-woman team, before it became
A two-woman?
She didn't point it out. I
A
did.
one-man
I
team.
didn't put it out. She did.
And then a husband and wife team. Sorry about that.
I think you remembered me and Sid, and
Right.
then you just
Right.
were there.
Right.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for saving me.
I got you.
So then it became a husband and wife team, and that's when it became complicated. But Linda and I, we've talked about it you know, from the very beginning,
Yeah.
that if and when it needs to be done, then I will focus more on the business, and we'll split the time with you being focused more on the kids, so that the kids will always have the attention that they need, and then so the business will also always have the attention that it needs, right? If and when we need to make that decision. That being said, the business grew, and then we grew, and our family grew to a family of 4. And I'm not sure if you want to share the story, but Linda, she loves her family, and the one thing that she struggles with, I would say, as just as an individual, is that it takes her a long time to trust. Okay, so trust is a big thing. I mean, you could speak on this. I'm not speaking for you.
I have major trust issues. I'm a control freak. So, you know, when you kind of add that to the dynamic of a lot of things that we do every day, that's a lot of uncertainty, it kind of drives me crazy. But given that I have him by my side whenever we are dealing with big decisions, small decisions, any type of decisions, as long as I know that he's there, I feel like I don't have that freak out moment freak out moments as much as I normally would. Mm-hmm. But I feel like when you're going into a business, or when you're thinking about beginning a family, I think every couple, or for the most part, would kind of have that same conversation, just maybe slightly different, in a way where if you're gonna, you know, when you're pregnant, when you're, you know, about to have this baby, how are things going to change in the relationship between the two people? And then you kind of have assumptions, or, you know, just future thinkings of how it is when the baby's going to be here. How are you going to add on?
That's the biggest part. I think, you know, before having your first kid, for those that don't have kids yet and are in business, or for those that are trying to get into business and don't have kids and potentially want to have both, the most this anxiety, right? So you don't know, and what you don't know will make you anxious, right? So before going into a business, you're anxious if it's going to work. Am I good enough? Is it going to, you know, if this business plan is even going to be worth it? Is that market going to accept me, or whatever? But then when you throw a kid into it, it's like, okay, well, what kind of a parent will I be? What kind of dad will I be? What kind of mom will I be?
What kind of kid will they be?
What kind of kid will they be? Like, who are we raising? Are we spending too much time at work and not at home? Are we spending too much time at home and not at work? Are we taking care of the people that work for us at work, or and then are we forgetting our kids, and then we're taking care of our kids too much? Then the people at work are going to think that we're forgetting about them. So how do we manage and juggle all of this? It's so important, because everyone is important, right?
Correct.
Because your business is your kid, and your kids are for sure your kids, right? So you always got to make sure that you take care of everybody, and that's the biggest struggle when it comes to ensuring that there's a balance. So I would say, first and foremost, my first recommendation, as always, and I'm very consistent with saying this, is like, if you are gonna do it, you have to be certain that's what you want to do. You really have to like what you do, and if you're gonna open a business, you truly have to look within yourself. Is this a challenge that you're willing to take on, and is this a challenge that you actually enjoy? Way too many people out there are opening businesses right now because the entrepreneur type of word out there, it's a sexy word at the moment. But at the end of the day, they may just be an accountant, a financial analyst, a bookkeeper, or anything, whatever, and that they could be really good at that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're an entrepreneur or they want to open their own business. So you really have to find that time because there are plenty of people out there that would rather work 8 hours a day and then spend the rest of the 16 hours doing other things, spending time with the kids and their family. Linda and I were extremely obsessed at work and extremely obsessed when we go home with our kids as well. So we spend all of our energy and efforts in building our family at work and at home. And going back to the uncertainty with Linda is that she always she comes from a family that it's very traditional, right? Mom and dad goes to work and then does the 9 to 5. They go home, they spend time with the kids, and they have a dinner.
And I thought that was my future.
Right.
I thought it was going to be the exact same thing. I didn't know any better, and it wasn't really until I met you did you start planting the seed or even telling me the things that you're interested in for me to begin to open my mind to know that, hey, you know what? Maybe there is something to what he's saying. Maybe there's more to it than the 9 to 5. But that was one of the scariest things that I've ever had to decide. Like, am I really going to leave something like that? But, when I have someone like him really proving to me that there isn't anything that he can't do, there's no reason for me not to do it.
So what made you...
Oh my God, I see it.
I'm fishing.
Oh, I can
fishing.
Tell. Okay. What?
No, I mean, like,
because
I think that's a good question to ask because I think that's what people are probably thinking, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a 9 to 5 mentality,
which is nothing is wrong
what
with
was
that.
it about, me that influenced you to say, okay, well, you should go into business on your own, or what, because I think that's for some people that's a breaking point. For some people, that's a point of like, oh, they're interested, they want to test the waters, but then they're afraid to try it, right? So what is it about your mentality that shifted from, okay, you're gonna be
extreme, really.
From one extreme where you're gonna be more like your parents, where you go to work, come home, spend time with your kids, have dinner together, have the weekends
And that's
together.
what I like.
Because
that too.
remember, when you run a business, it's 24/7. I mean, there's really no breaks, right? So you think there's a break when you come home, but when you're running a business, all this stuff is going through your mind. You're constantly thinking about all the issues and the problems.
There's no break.
And everyone that's involved in how to make people happy and how to make, at the same time take care of your kids, make sure they're well fed, make sure they're well educated, make sure they're loved, and all of that stuff. And your weekends are not really your weekends. Even if you go on vacation, you're constantly thinking about work.
We're working on vacation.
Right. So even when you're on vacations, if you run a business, you're getting emails and all of that, and there's fires to take out. So that you will never ever have a real break. I mean, unless you just try to shut off.
Yeah,
right?
unless you're off the grid, you're really not.
Right.
off.
So jumping into opening a business is a 100% full time, 24/7, 365 commitment, right? So it's a commitment all the time, right? So that being said, how did you go from a 9 to 5 mentality to wanting to do this with me?
Well, for someone who's such a control freak and extremely logic based, I need my list. I don't know if I've said it before here, but I've said it all over the place with people. I need a pros and cons list. We talk about everything that we want to do, everything that, I care about, and it all starts with a list. And we have a very deep conversation and a very serious conversation about the things that matter most. And then here are all the potential issues and cons of this decision. And the more that I reviewed this list with you, I started seeing the things that made me feel good about it is we're aligned in what we want for our family. We're aligned with what we want to see in each other in terms of growth in our career. And as long as we're aligned, it just made me feel like as long as I see that commitment, that passion in you, and there was nothing else you'd rather do, there is no better bet I can make. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there wasn't that list, as much as it worked, it was because I think we just shared it to the point where there's almost very little differences. And when I saw that fire in you, I just couldn't deny it. And it's like, you know what? If it's gonna work, it's going to work because of him.
So you believe
Oh
me.
my.
I can't get over it. No, so.
Right.
No, now.
That was the whole setup.
I should have known. It's
No,
like
so
this.
so no. Here's a true story. So we went to college together. We met in college. I met her when I was 20.
Lies.
Okay, fine. We met on a website called Friendster before Facebook, before
Dun, dun, dun.
right. So,
That's
but
the
then we went
one.
to college together. Okay, so
That's the one he tells people.
she messages
Like,
people.
no, I'm not
So
gonna
hold
tell
on. So
people
there's a
now.
time where it was really weird to say that you're dating someone that you met online. Yes, there was a time back in the day we're dating ourselves, but it was more normal to get a girls, actually approach a woman and get their phone number and then call them and actually use some personal skills to actually communicate with people in order to get them to see if you guys jive together, right?
Right. You don't ask for their Instagram.
Yeah, you don't ask for the what do they
What's
call
your
it now? You
handle?
slide the
You
DMs.
don't slide in the
Yeah, you
DMs.
don't slide through
DM
the DMs,
me.
right?
The actual
Right.
slide in the DMs means.
Oh, slide. That's what people say now?
Yeah, no, the
Slide
equivalent
into
is you walk up to them.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it was, but
Oh,
yes.
I slid into your messaging.
But she did. She slid into my DM. She did actually.
shit.
You were the original sliding to people's DMs.
People's. No, I only did it to you.
I should check.
No, but I'm serious. That's what happened. But he doesn't want to share. He goes, no, we met in college. Just tell people that. I'm like, no. Why?
No, because the majority of my memories with you is during college. So I told you, sometimes I forget that we met on each other on Friendster.
I know, he forgets our kids' ages.
So what did you say again? I'm sorry.
What?
What did you say to me? I
Did you
forgot.
really forget? Don't lie.
No, I totally forgot.
I actually felt, I don't know what this overwhelming confidence is. You know, what did I have to lose? I actually sent him a message saying, finally, comma, a cutie on Friendster, period. That was it. I was like, here it goes.
You remember the grammar.
Of course I did, because I thought about it so I'm like, do I send it? Do I not? Do I send it? Do I not? And then I sent it, and he was so nice. He was so nice. Come here, ears. When I actually got a message back, I swear I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh my God, he's so nice. And he asked like the nicest question.
Well, when I got that message and I saw the picture, I was like, oh, she's cute. Yeah.
Never told me this.
I was like, oh, she's cute. So I just messaged her back.
And then you had kids with her, and now we're going back to that point.
Yes, going back to the certainty thing. So she's a 9-to-5 person. I am more of, I've always thought of myself as being an entrepreneur because my parents are entrepreneurs. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've never seen them do a 9-to-5. So I've always envisioned myself when I grew up. Of course, I'm gonna work for myself because I've always seen my parents work long hours. 16-hour days, 18-hour days. I just always thought that was normal. So when we were in our junior year in college, this is the reason why I actually talked about college. I even told her, I said, I don't see the benefit in this for me.
Yes.
I think I want to quit school and just open my own business and do something.
Yes, you did.
At that time, I wanted to be in the real estate business. So during that time, I just saw people that did real estate, and I was just, I'm still very big on real estate. This is something that people don't know about me. I really like real estate.
We love real estate.
Yeah, we love real estate, and we really like to just kind of see, buildings and homes, and try to envision what it would be like to be landlords of multiple properties and those type of things. But anyway, so that was the business that I originally wanted to be in when I was in my 20s. But then she convinced me or influenced me and said, hey, you know what? You could always do it later. It's only another year. Just finish, right?
But you know what?
So
Now
I'm so thankful that you did.
But
Because
to think about it, I really to think about when you told me that you wanted to drop out of college, and for me to say, you know what, why do it? Just finish it. One, I really wanted to go to school with you still, and two, I didn't if you were to compare the reasons why you wanted to start Fire and Brilliance or have your own business versus the way you demonstrated how you felt about dropping out of school, I was not convinced. To be honest, I was not convinced that was the decision that was something you really wanted to do. It felt like it was just something you wanted to do.
But has it been pretty consistent since? That's like, I I prefer to work for myself.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I think
yes.
the reason why you weren't convinced is
Yeah.
because, again, going back to the
Maybe it was too new
the
in our
fact
relationship.
that you came from a family that's very traditional. Right, so you work 9 to 5, you go out and get a job, you have time on the weekends with your family and dinners with your family at night and stuff like that. So I think that's something you envisioned. You probably didn't think that I grew from a different side of.
But to clarify,
from the opposite end.
But to clarify, as much as I say I come from a family that preaches and really appreciates the 9 to 5.
Right.
My family grew up.
Right.
I grew up at the flea market.
Right.
I don't know if people. No, people don't know this.
Right.
But I spent about 10 years of my childhood with my parents and my sister and my brother at the Berryessa flea market, selling, helping my mom sell blankets, sell fabric, sell all the things that's made for, I guess, sewing.
Right.
And I learned a lot out there about being you just got to support your family. When your family's in business, you're also in business with them.
That's right.
But what I also noticed was my mom and dad's strong work ethic. My dad worked 3 jobs, 9 to 5, and then the weekends, and then the afternoons he'll be with my mom at the flea market. We're always with my mom if we're not in school. And even when we went to school, we were at school at 6 in the morning because a teacher, I remember one of my preschool teachers or my kindergarten teachers was nice enough to my mom to say, you know what, if you have other obligations, you can drop us off. And I didn't know what that was. I thought that was normal school. But I think over time, as the time started to near the end of the time we worked at the flea market, my mom and dad really started saying, it's really hard work. It's like it's intensive labor because they had such strong work. They were the first one out at the flea market. They were the last one to pack up and leave.
Right. So then eventually, when they started working for a big company, and they found that it's a lot.
Easier
on
their
body and mind and not have to deal with the stress that how I'm going to make my next meal or my next sale, right? Because that's a constant thing when you're running your own business.
Yes.
Like how do we make enough to continue to feed into the system and the people that work here, right? So I think that was something that was that they were preaching to you at a very young age,
like
right?
don't think about it too much. Just go and do really well in school and go and get a job so you can do the 9 to 5. So you don't have to what they would think is too hard on your body and too hard on yourself.
So that would be the background as to how we were raised and those type of things. But going back to what the original conversation was this. How do we do it with our kids, and how do we do it with our business?
Follow up. Actually, like, given that you guys have that background where you have experienced being kids in a family where your parents are running a business, do you feel like you take from that experience to give you more context so that you know how to tailor that experience for your kids? Like, you're like, oh, I know what my kids are going through now because I went through that.
Yes.
And now I have
Absolutely.
an equipped way how to make it better for them.
Hey, listen, absolutely. When I say my parents were entrepreneurs, I'm from a Vietnamese background, and I'm sure many people do know when you're thinking about nail salons and beauty salons. My parents, when they're immigrants here, right? So they had no other opportunities. So the only opportunity they knew was to go into beauty school, and that's what the Vietnamese culture community did at the time, and still do now. So they owned a few nail or beauty parlors down in Los Angeles, California. That's where I grew up. Side note, obviously during the Rodney King riot, all of my parents' stores got burnt down to the ground, smoked, and we were wiped out. But anyway, so that's from a long time ago. But yes, that type of environment and growing up there, I grew up in a nail store. Right, so on the weekends, they didn't let us, go out and hang out with our friends. They took us, they grabbed us, we sat there at the nail store from dusk till dawn.
Yep.
I was just out there. So to see that type of work ethic from my parents. Definitely shaped me. So I'm not afraid of hard work. Hard work, it's something that's mandatory. I just see that through actions, right? So that being said, I feel like, with our kids now, we try to do the same, but in a different way. We do our best not to pull our kids into the office here unless, there's a day where the babysitter or the nanny is not there or around or something like that. But that being said, we try to give them a quality of life for them to enjoy their summer. Like right now, it's summertime, they're out of school, to really enjoy their summer, enjoy their time with each other and those type of things. But then we also preach hard work, smart work, and those type of things to them all the time, because one day they will be older and they will have to make a decision for themselves. And so we do teach that as well, and we do more, and I personally do more so, not just by my word of mouth, but through my actions. I'm hoping that will shape them when they grow older, because when I feel like it definitely shaped me when I was growing up and I saw my parents do it, and I see my dad. He has a very strong work ethic as well. And everything that we're doing here in front of camera and everything, this is actually not my natural state. I started doing this because I saw my dad do it in the Vietnamese community when he's advertising to the Vietnamese community. He's on TV, he's on the radio. So when I do visit him. When he was, when I was much younger, when I actually visited him, I would see, all the TV guys would come and record him in his jewelry store. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing an ad. So and then I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, he seems so natural at it, but you pick it up. You see, and then by doing that, it gives you the confidence to do it yourself. But anyway, so that being said,
would you say that the conscious decision that you make to not have the kids here that often comes from you knowing that when you were a kid, you wish you had more of that being a kid time?
Absolutely. What I had to do when I was a kid was I was inside the nail store, and then when they closed, I would have to sweep and clean, wipe down the floors, wipe down the countertops, and it gets really dirty in a nail store, all the nails and clippings and all that stuff. And but the cool thing about it, the one thing that I loved the most was my mom would allow me to count the money and tally up the books. Maybe that's the reason why I got into finance. I don't know. But back in the day, they didn't use credit cards as much. It was more like just cash. So it was just kind of cool to just count cash as a young kid. But I think what that instilled in me was to know that it's possible. Even though it wasn't mine, obviously it was not mine, but to know that it's possible that, hey, you could open and do something on your own and call it your own, and then eventually, do something like that. And she allowed me to do that, and which was a really neat thing. But yes, to answer your question, I don't, I try not to do that as much with our kids. I try to teach them that at home, but then when we do go to work, they see the action. Is that what we do? Especially us doing this on YouTube. Kids nowadays love YouTubes. They love YouTube. They love YouTube. So for my son and my daughter to see me on YouTube, at first they thought they were blown away, but now they say it's normal, right? They think it's normal.
That's what they tell their classmates. My dad is a YouTuber. and then because they don't know, they don't know as much as, because they're so young, right. They actually, Matt has a recommendation. He goes, you should have some merch, Dad.
Yeah.
He's definitely deep in the YouTube game if he's telling you to get merch.
And then he was like, Mom, you should say subscribe below. And then I'm like, what? You're 7.
So they know everything about YouTube, right? So I'm more of a the way I see myself is I'm more of a passion enthusiast when it comes to jewelry, and I just so happen to run also a business in jewelry. And then YouTube is just a media outlet for us to spread our message, right? But for my son, Matthew, he looks at me as if, like you said, he tells his friends, oh, my dad's a YouTuber. And I'm like...
They geek out, and I'm just like, that's so cool.
And he gives me tips. He's like, Dad, you only have like 5,000 subscribers? I follow these guys that have a couple of million. Come on, you got to step up your game.
Yeah, seriously, he's like his biggest...
And then I'm like, you know what? You're right. You know what do you think I should do? He's like, you should always say bye when you end. You should offer merch. You should always ask people to subscribe. You should put these icons here, and you should always make jokes.
My favorite thing about the merch part is he doesn't realize that the merch came first, and that's your jewelry.
No, exactly. That's why it's funny.
Right.
That's technically your YouTube merch. You sell jewelry.
But to be honest, going back to the lifestyle that we were exposed to when we grew up with our families, being entrepreneurs in their different businesses, I feel like there's just so much value in it. I definitely didn't see it at that time.
Well, like I've been telling you, I think you found your strong work ethics through your parents.
For
right?
sure.
So they taught you hard work at a young age, and so.
That's where I feel like our kids might be lacking.
I'm glad that we're sharing these stories because it's really answering the whole topic and the theme of all of this is because when it comes to raising kids and running a business as a husband and wife team, I think the first and foremost, the first cohesive thing is the husband and wife have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
With our goals, our agendas, what we want for our kids, our family, and our business. Immediately, the first thing I noticed in Linda was that she was very much like me when it comes to ambition. We have the same ambitious goals, right? So she was always ambitious. I never had to motivate her. I've always been self-motivated, and every time I asked her, like, to do something or do something with me and believe in it, she never doubted it, and she was willing to work just as hard as I was, if not harder. There are days where she'll work, people don't see the things behind the scenes. She'll be on her laptop until 2 a.m, right? So that being said, we are aligned in a lot of ways in order to make it work. So if you or people that are watching are planning on opening a business and also raising kids and also doing all of that, I think first and foremost, look within yourself. Is that something you really want to do? Is that something you really want to take on? Is it something you really want to be challenged on? Because again, it's a 365-day task, 24 hours a day.
And if you can't accept that, it's going to be very hard to accept.
You have to accept it. It's going to be something you have to live and breathe, right? And second of all, in order to raise the kids, and I say this a lot of times, and it's kind of cliche because it goes around a lot and people say it a lot, is that there's really no balance. If you want to run a business and have a family, there's no such thing as balance. People like to say, 8 hours here and 2 hours there and 4 hours. That's not how it works, right? So sometimes, life is chaotic. You might say 8 hours here, but then there's a fire you got to put out that wasted 6 hours of your time. So then you have to work an extra 6 hours when you go home, right? So it's just like if you have a kid, you'll know that, especially if it's a newborn, you'll make sure you change their diapers and change them up and put them in the car and about to take off to go somewhere. And right when you put them in the car, they poop in their pants again. It's the same thing. So you have to take them out of the car again and clean them up again, and then there goes 30 minutes of your time, right? So there's no balance. You have to adapt every second, every minute. You just keep going. Here's your end goal, but the end goal is never a straight line. People say this because it's true. It's usually you have to kind of go up and down before you get to that end goal, and that's just life, right?
So going on the topic of balance and that things are really chaotic, one thing I was thinking is that, obviously you always have to adapt, and there's always things that's going to happen, and you're always concerned about whether or not you're spending enough time on either the business or the family. Right. Now, with both business and family, those are big commitments. Right. And with commitments, there are times where you need to make sacrifices. Right. So I'm sure there are times where, I guess my question is, are there times where you have something that you need to do and you have to sacrifice family time in order to do it? And then, are there times where you've had to sacrifice business time because you need to attend to your family? Or do you always live by the family first structure? Or is it by a case-by-case basis?
Case by case. I will take that one only because a perfect example is when I was pregnant and had Juliet. So that's our second child, right? The business is already up and running. It was already a husband and wife team.
There's a lot of momentum going on in the business.
And we knew, going into now having the second kid, how do we balance this? If anyone has a baby, you'll know the first few months of life, the baby's life, you're gonna be completely needed. So there's gonna be no sleep for the mom or dad in some cases. Right. But we've been through it one time before. But here's the area that I think he and I had to consciously decide and discipline ourselves to follow through with. When I delivered Juliet, we have already decided that I will be the one that stays up. I will be the one that will be around the clock service, pretty much, to the baby. He had the business to run. Under no circumstance, unless it was dire, will he have interrupted sleep. He was in the other room, sleeping with our son.
Otherwise, the business already had a lot of momentum. We did not want to give up on, obviously, the business nor our baby, right? So, we had to take on the load 100%. One person will take on the family, the other person will take on the business. Because if both sides are doing 50-50, then everything will be very mediocre.
Well, it didn't work out for us if we had to go down that route.
Right.
So, I might as well say, you know what? Around the clock care, it will be me. And he will get to sleep because he needs to be fully
and
rested.
sleep meaning 5 hours, right?
taking care
that's
of
why
our
we're
son.
talking about sleep.
5 hours more than 0.
Yeah, so right.
And I'm not gonna lie, it was probably one of the hardest 2 months of my life because the baby's crying all hours of the night. And what am I really doing? I don't go over there. I do not. It's very similar to when he went to GIA.
Right.
We have to be disciplined enough to know, okay, this is
Well,
where we draw the line.
Here's the other thing too. Once you are committed to your family and your business, then you have to also seek outside help, right? So no one is a one-man team. There's really no I in team. It's cliche, but it's true. So it got to the point where again, Linda has a trust issue when it comes to people and or just anything that is outside of the norm.
I think most moms would though,
especially when it comes to our kids, right?
Yes.
Especially when it comes to our kids. So we decided that, hey, I think it's time for a nanny. To basically hire on a nanny, come home and take care of our kids. So it took a while. We had to vet a few people, try a few people, let go of a few people, and then we finally found help that could actually assist us so that during the times when we are not at home, we'll have a nanny to take care of our kids that we can fully trust, that they have our best interests, our kids' best interests, and all of our best interests, so that Linda could get back to work and I could also be back at work and not have to worry that our kids are not taken care of. So, so I would say a few pieces of advice, just to wrap things up here. I mean, really, is unless you have any other questions, Brian, is really to number one. Truly commit yourself to both the business and your family at all times, and prioritize accordingly. Only you will know what's the main priority at that point in time. If there's a huge fire at work and you have to put out, then let's make sure that you put out the fire, right? If you then do that. But then if your kid is sick and needs to go to the doctor, I think that's pretty important, So make sure you take your kids to the doctor. So you have to adapt accordingly, right? So truly commit yourself. Number two. Make sure that you and your husband or wife or significant other are on the same page. Same mentality, same goal, same agenda, same ambition, same whatever it is. Put on a piece of paper, write it out. What do you agree on? What do you not agree on? Why don't you agree on it? How can you renegotiate? How do you make it work? How you analyze? Because like I said, again, being in a relationship is the same as being in business. We are constantly working with each other. What makes you happy? What makes me happy? This is what I need. I need it for sure, at least an hour to 2 hours of my alone time at the gym every day. Can you live with that? Those type of things. I do need time for myself, right? So that's what I need. She doesn't need that. I mean, she's naturally gorgeous, right? So
did not see that coming. Don't say stuff like that.
This body has never seen a gym.
Don't even. That's not.
This body has never seen a gym in her life, and she looks like this.
This is not a good thing to say.
I'm a very fortunate man. So that being said, and the third.
Working all the time.
I think one great takeaway too, which is what I loved about your answer to my question, was the fact that you guys remembered that you guys are a 2-person team. Because when I asked that question, I was really like, how do you balance that? And I just thought it was awesome that you were like, oh, there's 2 of us. Yeah. One could do one could do the other.
Right. Yeah, we depend on each other the same way. Like if I were to ask him to do something and vice versa, I don't feel like, oh, is he gonna do it right? And I think I have to completely trust that he is. And even if it falls short, the intention of doing it the way that he wanted to do it was there. Mm-hmm. And I what else can you ask of someone else? It's that's all I could hope for. And he's like the greatest partner because I can trust him. Yeah, a lot of things.
Right. So, no, I 100% agree. And, just going back to your point too, Brian, is by saying that I really give it up to all the single moms out there, right? So
and dads.
And dads. So it really helps out if you do have a 2-person team. Whereas, because I saw it both sides. I mean, when my parents were still together, it was much more efficient after they broke up. When my mom became a single mom of 3, I saw the stress in her face, right? It's not easy. And she's also an entrepreneur, so she's running a business and 3 kids, 3 teenagers at the time, by the way. So
it's all possible.
Right, so it's possible. You just have to be committed, mentally focused, emotionally there, really clear, and prioritize every single day. What's priority today? What do you need to take care of today, from business to family? And don't go to sleep until all of that is done, or at least a lot of that is done, unless your health is like in question, then obviously please go to sleep. But all right. So, but yes, take care of yourself, and then do it that way. But again, I would say, and seek outside help. Don't be ashamed of asking for help from the outside. Either if you need a nanny to help take care of your kids, or if you need to ask your parents to help out, or if you need to ask your brothers, or whatever. So definitely, whenever possible, ask for outside help. Hire on help. Build a bigger team, because the more people you have on your team, the more of that workload will be separated and spread out, and the quality actually will improve, because you can't specialize in everything. Right, so
Yes.
The YouTube channel here wouldn't be what it is without the media team. Our jewelry wouldn't be what it is without our designer and our jewelers and our vendors, and right. So it's
I know, I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to throw in the kids wouldn't be there without their mom.
That's true, and dad. That's
Okay,
also very true.
Just a little something there.
And I don't know. I mean, what? Maybe one more question, Brian, and one more last question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So, what do you think people would want to know as to how a husband and wife that runs a company will also be able to raise kids?
Well, I think an interesting angle is that whenever people think of this subject, they think of all the negatives and all the struggles and all the things you have to go through. What has been something that's been surprisingly awesome about having to do this, and like maybe something that you didn't think was be a cool benefit of actually having to juggle both family and kids?
I thought, honestly, it was going to be very easy for us to go at it with each other, because we both have very strong personalities. And as much as we are aligned and we talk about all these things that we're very on the same page with, when we're different, when we have opinions, we're very, very different. And I was that was one of the things I did worry about. That was one of the things I was worried about. But I think the key to it all really is, if you know that there's that end goal, that common objective in sight of what it is that you are both working hard towards, any argument, anything that you're about to have or you feel differently about is easily resolvable, regardless of how hard or tough that conversation may be. Because at the end of the day, I really respect his opinion, regardless if it's different than mine. And we break it down. And for the most part, I don't think that has been a problem the way I envisioned before getting into it with him. So that was my take. How about you?
There's a line that Lynn and I use all of the time and throughout our relationship, and every time we go through a hard time or a struggle, we always say it might be a blessing in disguise, right? So
always.
And trust me, we've seen our fair share of struggles, just like everyone else.
No different.
No different. When we've had emotional struggles, we've had relationship struggles, we've had financial struggles, we've had
no one knows.
Parenthood struggles. We have it's just we're normal people,
Yeah.
right? But what we tend to do is while going through that struggle, we try not to do our best to limit the amount of time that we are going to have self-pity, right? Instead of having self-pity, we focus, we re-energize, we plan, and we try to figure out how to get out of this.
You just gotta get through
right?
it.
So that is what has made us stronger as a couple, as parents, as well as business owners, is that we constantly try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because trust me, things are thrown in our way just as much as everyone else. There's always
And it's easy to give up. To be honest, that's easy.
Yeah.
But I don't like ever hearing that something is impossible. I hate the word can't, like to the point where I want to throw a shoe at someone who says it.
See, so where we're alike is that she hates impossible, she hates can't. But my same ambition is not because I hate that. My ambition is that I don't like regret. So when I know I want to do something, I always envision myself later on when I'm 70, 80, 90, or whenever it is when my time is done. I just don't want to look back and say that I didn't try it when that's something that I've always wanted to do. So So that's my inside motivation. That's my number one motivation at all times, is that I just never want to say that I regret not trying, right? Because everyone tries, not everyone's gonna make it, right? I mean, trust me, if I could have it my way, I would rather be like a football player or like a soccer player or like some crazy athlete out there. But I'm just not tall enough. I don't jump high enough. I don't shoot well enough. I don't, but then I'll give it my best every time I play sports, right? But in the world of business, I've always known growing up that I wanted to do this and give it a go. Trust me, I've she knows as well as I do. There were many times when we first started that I was about to give up. The first year in, the second year in, I said, maybe that's not for me. And maybe I should just go back and do something else, right? And that was really in my mind for about a whole month, and I just snapped out of it. I was just like,
wasn't you just snapping out of it?
How was it?
Because I refuse to let you accept that as a fate. I was not gonna let you do that because you have so much passion for it, and I'm not gonna watch you just give up for reasons that I didn't feel like were justified. You had every bit in you to make it work. You just needed a really strong support system to remind you that you can do it. That was it. But yeah, it was me.
So just to go back to the question that it sounds like you guys feel like one of the things that you've gotten from having to balance family and business is that it's taught you guys how resilient you are as a team, and it's made you like better parents and better partners for each other. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and we're constantly learning. We're still learning. Still learning about.
Are these things about you guys yourself that you feel like you got because of this experience that you wouldn't have gotten anywhere else?
For sure. God, you would not go through the issues, the adversity that you go through unless you have a business, because you really don't know what's going to come flying at you. And then until you go through it, you're like, damn, did we just do that? We just figured it out.
And it brings you closer because you just went through hell together.
Yeah. And then, in the aspect of kids, just to really circle back, I know that our childhood is very different than the childhood that our kids have. But to really make up for it, we try to expose them to as much independent thinking, or put them in situations where they have a voice that they need to be able to use and get used to and get comfortable with that voice of theirs. Because when you're at the flea market or when you're at the nail salon, you're forced to basically translate for your parents. You're forced to talk to people that you don't know, and if you don't do it, you're gonna get in major trouble. Because that you just have to. And English was my second language. I don't know if it was.
Yes.
It was for you too. So my kids.
I didn't learn English until we went to school.
I was in ESL.
Because my parents didn't know how to speak a lick of English when they came here.
Yeah.
So I was speaking Vietnamese at home until I was about 4 before they put me in
Same.
school, and I was like, "What's this? What is this? Everyone is saying."
They put me some blue bird, red bird, or something category because I didn't speak English. But that's where we actually had to step in for our parents,
right,
because of the lack of English. And for our kids, they don't have that problem.
Right.
So how I feel like they should be exposed to that environment is putting them in situations where they may not need to translate for us, but they should be able to speak for themselves. Tell the waiter something so simple as, tell the waiter, if you are thirsty, what do you want? Oh, my son now goes, excuse me, do you have milk here? And without me even knowing that he wanted milk. So that's...
And he was very shy and timid.
Very shy.
So every time we go to a restaurant, we will encourage them to say, hey, if you want something, ask the server, because they'll help you. So in the beginning, he would just be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Water. Now he'll if they're not coming his way, he'll get off the seat, come up and say, excuse me, sir. Sir.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're sitting over there. Is it possible to get 2 glasses of water, please? Thank you.
Because if they don't have the environment that we grew up that helped us, we're going to have to create it for them.
Right. And I think that's how we try to do things, because we know that eventually one day they'll be older and they're going to have to be self-sufficient, and we don't want to spoon feed them.
No,
that's
we're not always going to be there.
Right, that's not always going to be the case. So anyway, if you like what you're seeing, leave the comments below. If there's any questions at all that you want to ask Linda or I, then please do. And let us know what you want to see next, or at the same time, just any questions that you may have or anything, or if you even like it, subscribe to the channel, right? That being said, if you are new to the channel, welcome. If you're not new to the channel, channel, then thanks for watching. I do want to actually say one more thing about a subscriber that's been following us. Her name is Cynthia. She's been leaving a lot of comments, with some glorious comments for Linda. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, Cynthia. That's so nice.
We appreciate you. And yes, she left a comment last night saying that sometimes I should take a step back and just appreciate the moment, as opposed to there's always another mountain to climb. I believe that's what she said. But first and foremost, to always appreciate Linda. And I want to let you know I do appreciate Linda every single day. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.